Good morning, everyone. It's 10 o'clock, and as you know, we start promptly with these kind of meetings, and with justification. You know, we've got a lot to get through, and of course, we do have a time limit with the room, so that's why we need to start fairly promptly. But if anyone else comes, they can obviously come in and come in at the back as well. I know we do have a full house today, so that's always very encouraging, and I think it's really nice that you know, you feel that Engage Estero has been obviously putting on some important meetings over the past year. Well, I hope you enjoy my my attempt at some seasonal graphics here on the welcome. So a very good potential Christmas and a happy season ahead for you all. And again, welcome. Those of you who don't know me, I'm Alan Bowditch. In April of this year, I took over as president of Engage Estero. Jim Gilmartin, the president at the time, is now in charge of the board of the organization. Our speakers today, and I'm very pleased indeed to welcome them, David Willems, who's the Estero Village Director of Public Works, and Leah Holmes, who was charged with the very large task of looking after the 2024 transportation survey that was done by the village, is obviously going to speak to us first about the results of that. Some of you who may have been here in March may remember Leah from then, when we actually shared with you, as did the people who were responsible for the survey, the initial results of that. But of course, now with more time under their belts, then obviously they've had a better chance to look into the data further and to obviously start to determine the actions and the proposals that need to be put in place in relation to that. So, without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Leah to take us through this first part of the program today. Thank you, Leah.
Thank you. I'll take the clicker.
Sorry.
You're good.
You need that.
It'll help. All right. So thank you. And for those of you, as Al mentioned, that were here in March, a bit of this beginning will be a quick recap. For those of you who were not here and are seeing this for the first time, this will kind of give you just a background on how we got to where we are. So the goals and objectives of this 2024 traffic study, we wanted to make sure we collected the peak season, peak hour traffic data. So all that was collected during the months of February and March. We used this data to look at the roadways as well as the intersections throughout the village. We also reviewed crash data at the intersections and combined all this and took a deep dive into it to develop this traffic study update. So it's just a quick map of all the data collection that was done throughout the village. There was the sort of magenta color, that was where there was counts across the roadway. Those were counting for a week at a time, 24 hours a day, so we can get the overall volumes of the roadway. Then we collected turning movement counts to get all of the lefts and right turns at all the intersections. The ones in blue were collected in the AM and PM peak hours. And one thing that was realized when we've looked at data over the years, the village roadways also peak during that noon lunchtime hour. So we also collected the green ones at that noon time frame as well. So we took that data, and that was our 2024 baseline traffic counts. So we used that to look at our 10-year projections to 2034. And so how we got there was utilizing the growth rates that you see here on the table. Each roadway segment had different growth rates depending on future developments, what's going on in the area for the roadways. And we looked at a lot of the larger developments that are either in permitting process, construction, things of that nature, to look at the future 10-year growth there. So as I mentioned, we collected that 2024 and used that to project out to the 2034 conditions. So getting into the roadways, I like showing this because it gives you a good graphic on, you always hear level of service of the road. Well, what does that mean? So level of service of A, you got those free flow conditions along the roadway. Once you start getting to a more stable flow, you start approaching C, D, a little bit more congestion. Then once you start seeing a level service F, that's when your roadway has exceeded its capacity. You might be in stop-go traffic and a lot of congestion. So we took a look at the roadway segments throughout the village. So we have the 2034 volumes that were collected in this column. So you can see those were currently operating at a level service B or C. And when we apply those growth rates that were on the previous table to 2034, we have a segment of Willems Road that was anticipated to exceed that capacity. So we also looked at the county and state roadways as well, Tamiami Trail, and then Ben Hill, Corkscrew, Estero, and Three Oaks. So for those 2024 conditions, Tamiami Trail and Three Oaks Parkway, those currently exceed the capacity of the roadway. And then looking at the 2034, you can see that there's a few more segments that are anticipated to reach the capacities. We also looked at the intersections. So same thing, the intersections have an overall level of service. These, instead of terms of overall volume of vehicles, it is the delay of vehicles, how long you're sitting there at a traffic light. So when the intersection is operating efficiently and it's a level of service of A or B, you're sitting there 10 to 20 seconds or less. Once the intersection starts approaching where it's exceeding its capacity, you start approaching your E or F, you're sitting there over a minute, maybe multiple light cycles that you're trying to get through that traffic light. So when looking at the intersections, we didn't look at just the overall intersection as a whole or the delays as a whole. We also looked at the approaches. As you know, there's a lot of traffic, especially along Tamiami Trail and some of the main corridors. Traffic is flowing heavily in the morning in one direction, and then it'll turn and reverse and flow heavily the other direction in the afternoon. So looking at each of those approaches to help kind of facilitate, okay, what can be done to help improve the delays that are currently being observed. So we looked at 15 intersections throughout the village. And of those, so for the 2024, you can see the overall level of service, a lot of those were exceeding the current capacity. When you apply those growth rates to the 2034 conditions, a few more come online to exceed the potential capacity of that intersection if there's no improvements that are completed. We also looked at an additional 15 of the unsignalized intersections. So in the current 2024 conditions, Tamiami Trail and Pelican Sound Drive was the one that was currently exceeding the delays through there. And when you apply to the 2034, Tamiami Trail and Pelican Colony Boulevard as well. So as I mentioned, we also looked at crash data. So we looked at the past 5 years of crash history at each intersection to see if there's any patterns, anything safety-wise that can be done to help make those intersections safer. I did want to point out Tamiami Trail and Willems Road. Now, these are not all the intersections. I just wanted to put up some of those with the higher frequency of crashes. In Tamiami Trail and Willems Road, I wanted to bring up, because over the past 5 years, there was 118 crashes. However, 3 of those had fatalities. And of those 3 fatalities, 2 of them were because of left turns coming off of Tamiami Trail, trying to make it then onto Willems Road. So they're trying to cross that traffic. So also as part of the study, we looked at multimodal impacts, what improvements can be made to help pedestrians, bicyclists, and other users of the roadway to make those safer. So some of those initial findings, so Tamiami Trail, that is a state-maintained roadway, and it is in a constrained condition. It's built right-of-way to right-of-way, so the main improvements through there are signal timing, looking at the phasing, retimings, to help facilitate the flows that are going up and down Tamiami Trail. Willems Road, that was the one segment that I mentioned. It's exceeding the capacity and is without improvements can potentially continue to exceed the capacity of the roadway. So some of the recommendations there is the potential turn lane additions onto Three Oaks Parkway to help facilitate that movement, potential 2 to 4 lane widening, and then the roundabout at the River Ranch Road intersection. So Corkscrew Road and Three Oaks Parkway, those are Lee County maintained roadways. So Corkscrew from Tamiami Trail to I-75, that is on the Lee County cost feasible for future 6-laning. And then Corkscrew Road east of Ben Hill, that construction was just wrapped up for the 4-laning. that design was set up as well for the future 6 laning, so they can add in those additional 2 lanes there. Then at Three Oaks Parkway, in order to increase the capacity through there, there's going to have to be some Lee County involvement to meet those future travel demands. Looking at some of the intersections, Tamiami Trail and Estero Parkway, the turn lanes on Estero Parkway are currently insufficient in length. So one of the recommendations was to close the left turn that is there into Walmart, and that'll allow for the lengthening of those left turn lanes off of Estero onto Tamiami Trail. Tamiami Trail and Willems Road, as I mentioned, this was the intersection with some fatalities. So in order to make that a safer intersection was to consider making those left turns protected and not allowing that permitted phase across oncoming traffic. And then adding an exclusive westbound right turn lane for getting onto Tamiami Trail. Tamiami Trail and Pelican Colony, the installation of the traffic signal will help alleviate some of the delays that are going on and safety concerns as well, which I'll touch on that more here in a little bit also. Tamiami Trail and Coconut Road, extending the westbound left turn lane to get additional capacity there for cars that are currently queuing. Some of the queue will exceed the capacity of the existing turn lane, which will impede the through traffic as well. And that future Pelican Colony traffic signal may help alleviate some of that, because currently there's traffic that is heading up to that intersection to utilize that light currently. So once the light is there at Pelican Colony, that'll subsequently help this as well. Corkscrew Road and via Coconut Point, southbound turn lane improvements to help increase the capacity through there. Tamiami Trail and Pelican Sound Drive. In the interim condition, something that's a little bit easier to implement is modifying that intersection to a right in, right out. Right now there's a lot of traffic that tries to make it all the way across 41 there, which increases those crash risks. And then a potential future traffic signal with all the development that is occurring to the east. Tamiami Trail and via Rapallo Drive, recommend completing a signal warrant analysis for that, and we are working with the village right now on getting contracts going for looking at these intersections and potential signals. So where do we go from here, looking at all these findings and what's going on? So we took all these potential recommendations and we listed them kind of on a scale on your high priority, medium priority, low priority. So your higher priority ones are the ones that they're not only the operational benefits, but they're also the safety benefits as well. So for those higher priority improvements, Tamiami Trail and Willems Road, getting those protected left turns in there. The more we can reduce the risk of the crashes, the better, the safer that intersection. And then adding that exclusive westbound right turn lane to help increase the capacity as well. So that one have not only the safety aspect, but as well as the operational aspect as well. Tamiami Trail and Coconut Road, eastbound and westbound left turn lane improvements, and these would be done along with coordination for that future Woodfield development as well. And the addition of the traffic signal at Pelican Colony, which is the one that's currently in permitting stages, will also help alleviate some of the congestion that is occurring at Coconut. And then, as I mentioned, Tamiami Trail at via Rapallo and Fountain Lake, traffic signal warrant studies. As I mentioned, we're working on contracts right now with the village for that. The medium priority improvements, so Tamiami Trail and Estero Parkway, increasing that westbound left turn lane there, which would essentially close that turn lane into Walmart. Right now there's a lot of conflicting movements with cars backing up at that westbound left turn lane and cars trying to also cut through and get across into Walmart. Tamiami Trail and Corkscrew Road, modifying the westbound approach to a dual left turn lane with a single through lane and an exclusive right turn lane. And then as well as adding a secondary right turn lane for the eastbound movement as well. And as I mentioned about signal timing, we put that in a medium priority just because it is something that's easily implemented. Any of them that are along the state roadway, FDOT, and Lee County, they work together to take a look at those timings. There's lots of phasing plans, and they're constantly modifying those. And then the ones within the village as well, the Lee County also maintains those and modifies those timings as needed. Some of the lower priority improvements was Tamiami Trail and Broadway, adding an exclusive eastbound and westbound left turn lanes. And then Coconut Road and at Coconut Shores Drive and Old Meadowbrook, looking at roundabouts in that area. And then Corkscrew Road and via Coconut Point, a southbound left turn lane extension. Some of the other future improvements, and these are the ones that would be completed by Lee County because they are their maintained facilities. The Three Oaks Parkway capacity improvements, as well as the Corkscrew Road widening. So any of the enhancements that are done along that corridor needs to involve the county and get their involvement through the process of those. And with that, I'll open up to questions. Yes.
Are you making one by the nursing home by, is it Walgreens over there and the trail and Willems? They was supposed to have a roundabout so people.
Yeah, that's Williams and Atlantic Gulf Drive. What we've run into is issues trying to get the property we need from the Life Care Center. So we're working on that, but that design may need to change and we may not be able to do that roundabout. We will be working on extending the left and eliminating those left turns out from Walgreens, but the roundabout may not be able to happen.
You can eliminate so you can turn left down?
No, you will not be able to turn left.
We were just there last night.
Yeah, somebody else was driving and I usually come from Walgreens, make a right, go by the Life Care facility, go in there, and then come.
Well, what we hope most people will start doing is going up to where the 7-Eleven is, come out on 41 there instead, because that's still a dangerous turn. We shouldn't have people going into the Life Care Center to make a U-turn.
That's what I usually my kids went the opposite way and went the way you said. But then you have to cross over. There's no light there, right?
No, there isn't a light, but you can't cross. You can't make a left. You have to make a right and then a U-turn or.
What they did last night.
Yeah. And there are actually signs within that development that say to do that. When you're coming out of, when you come out, there's green signs that say if you're trying to go on 41 or east on Willems, go this way, which is toward the 7-Eleven.
You were just there last night. You know exactly what he did.
Good.
That way, and I said,
Hopefully more people do that.
Bob,
I noticed we didn't have any updates or action on the potential contact signal at Wildwood Boulevard and Estero Crossing, saying there were great in Wildwood. It's not necessarily in the building. That there were 3 accidents in September and October there. One of the accidents had a 30 vehicle. And the reason why that contact signal there also is it'll help on Wildwood and it's porch saying
I know that's something that's been kind of ongoing with Lee County. I don't think the village has had any involvement in that since it is further east.
Okay.
So the village really is involvement is that the development to the south already has a zoning condition that requires them to pay for their proportionate share of that traffic signal. So I think the village has done everything that we can, and talking to the original developer, they're ready to pay for it. I mean, they've designed it, they're ready to go, and it's really the properties in the county, which the village is somewhat limited. The village is somewhat limited in what we can accomplish because we don't have jurisdiction over them, and it's a county road. But it still is important. It's definitely on our radar, and I mean, if there's a way that we could work with the county to force that to happen, we would.
Thanks.
Oral question, yes?
Yeah. So are you saying that the county would have board jurisdiction over the Wildwood?
Yeah, they're the only ones that has jurisdiction. They're not within the village. Wild Blue is not within the village, so there's no permitting authority. There's no regulatory authority for the village over them.
Yes. You provided data on crash and fatalities. Have you looked at what causes that rate of fatalities and crashes at those sites? And do we have any goals as to what they should be to reduce that?
We did, and that's why we looked at seeing if there was patterns on different ones. That's why Willems Road was at the Tamiami Trail intersection. That was one that we noticed that, okay, there is a clear identifying reason these are occurring, which is why we want to stick that on the higher priority so we can mitigate against those.
There are reasons why accidents happen. I gave you an example of the one Ben Hill going to Publix. But again, it's the left turn, which is the most dangerous turn to make, because you can make the turn on a green, but you have to yield, and that's where most accidents.
So it's the same. It's the exact same situation at Willems. So yes, where there's fatalities, especially, that's where any intersection that has even one fatality, Johnson looked at closely. Why did that happen? And especially at the one at Willems and 41, there's more than one where that happened. And it is what you're talking about is protected versus unprotected left. So what the recommendation at Willems is to eliminate the unprotected left. Now the negative to that is there's going to be a lot more traffic backed up through that turn lane, but I mean, what's the cost for people not making that dangerous turn? Right, no, absolutely, totally agree. That's why we've already, usually the first question we get on this is, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing next? Like, we just finished this, but what are we doing next? So we've already reached out to the state to try to see if we can facilitate getting that change to a protected left only.
So the one by Publix and Ben Hill, is that village or is that county?
That's county road.
So to change that, we'd have to go to the county. Yeah.
But we can work on those. I mean, it's the same thing with the US 41. It's not there's only one traffic signal within the village that the village owns. And that's the one at Via Coconut and Coconut.
Because we have a number of questions, let's move on. Yes?
I understand why you want to get rid of the left turn there at Walmart, but my big concern is now, and it's already posing a problem, turning left once you leave Walmart up by Osprey, so now all that traffic's starting to come. It's going to make that more difficult too. We've already got a little crazy there as it stands, because people come there sometimes, do a U-turn, but most of the time, just the traffic alone, and try to turn left out of there, So
you're 100% correct. And when and if that happens, it will be more than just looking at Walmart. It will be a study that looks at that intersection plus Osprey Cove, which don't know what the study is going to say, but the study could say that it has to be a traffic signal at Osprey Cove because the volumes have gotten so high that that's the only safe way.
Right, yeah, that was something we talked about quite a bit.
To me, the elephant in the ring is maybe things shed some light on this. But every one of these accidents that's had a cause, I believe, over and above the construction was the other side. We also know that we have traffic violations in this area, in large parts to some degree caused by people driving through train business at work, 41 in particular. Well, how much of these accidents are being caused by people making illegal left turns or people speeding through an intersection when the light changing? It's working.
So I don't think we obviously couldn't look at every intersection. It was really the fatalities that we looked at closely. And I don't know that, I didn't see any of those that they indicated that they were turning on a red or anything like that. It was generally, they had the right of way, they misjudged the speed of the vehicles coming toward them and jumped out in front of them. Correct. And the visibility, I mean, it's not ideal in some of those intersections.
When you're trying to cross 3 lanes of traffic and it might look like you have some time, but there could be a car further out, a couple lanes away, that's traveling a lot faster that they can't see.
In several, on Coconut Road, what's happened a lot is people are making a right-hand turn, and so it blocks the car that's behind them, and then they come out in front of them and get hit. So I mean, there's a variety of reasons.
Yeah, go ahead.
Update the traffic signal at light and propel it and validate boulevard to support but especially in the permitting stage for tree tears. How can we fire under effort to get it permit?
Well, I don't know that I would say that it's just FDOT. I mean, they may be part of it, but it's also the landowners. I just had a conversation with Culver's that's right there. And so what they're hopefully going to try to do is get them and all the other businesses there to try to get their HOA, because it's really their HOA that's doing it, hopefully them and the sheriff, the hospital can all get their HOA to start putting a priority on it to get it designed and permitted and built. Because it's affecting them directly as well. Right, I gave them the hospital's number, so hopefully they'll reach out.
I saw a couple of people with, oh, sorry.
Leah, the intersection of concern of 41 and Telephone Sound Drive, and changing that on the short term, at least, to that ride in, ride out only. What are those next steps look like to make that happen?
I mean, it would involve a study of that and then design and permitting through the state.
So how does that get initiated? It was it had one of the highest crash incidents of your say.
Yeah, I mean, that is one that we'll be looking at. I mean, the other two are the ones that are being pushed forward right now, but that is something that will be looked at. I don't know, we're not working on a study for that right now, but.
Yeah, and I'd like to study very much, though there's a question I didn't hear any discussion of, this enforcement. I happen to be one of the rare people who drives the speed limit. I'm the slowest guy on the road.
Yeah, I mean, the village doesn't have control over enforcement. The sheriff.
What is it?
In the original study, when we first came here to air our problem, Estero Parkway, where Cascades and the Reserve, that's a 4-way onto that 2-lane highway, and everybody's doing, as the gentleman said back here, 75 miles an hour in a 40-mile zone, 45-mile-an-hour zone. I don't see that was addressed anywhere, and that's a very serious situation. It's one of the few places where you have two communities that's exactly across from each other.
It is addressed. It is addressed. It just wasn't highlighted in this specific presentation. If you were to look at the actual study, they did a lot more work than what they presented here. If they tried to present everything they did, we'd be here for 4 hours. So what they recommended, I believe, 2 things. One was potentially eliminating the left, similar to what with Pelican Sound, so that you can't make a left turn out of there anymore. You have to take a right and a U-turn, or potentially go back to what the village originally wanted to do there, was put in a roundabout at some point. The roundabout's going to be difficult just because, I mean, we literally just did that road, and to come in and tear everything up to put in a roundabout, I'm not sure that in the short term, but that is in the study.
I think we talked about that about 3 years ago when John was in. I think John did a study there for a little bit. But it's a serious situation, and what happens is now you have people that want to, if you're coming out of Reserve and you want to go east, they're stacking. You have 2 and 3 cars stacking, waiting. And the other problem that we have, kids, that's the shrubbery, and if when you try to get out, it's too high.
Can't see.
You cannot see.
We'll look at that.
I could see trucks, but I can't see motorcycles or sports cars or anything lower. And that's a serious problem.
Yeah.
And what's that? There's a name of a way to control this. And I think is it called a Michigan or a Detroit? Is it Michigan U?
Well, it's just eliminating the left out and making it right. But that's what we have that proposed at several intersections, and that's a recommendation at that one as well.
Okay. You know, there's a quick thought here. If the Life Care Center maintained this position, what is the alternative on Williams Road?
So we will be moving forward. Short term could be, we still have to work through the details, doing the work up close to US 41, which would involve putting in a median, like a real concrete barrier, extending the left turn at US 41 because that fixes you can't make the left out anymore, and extends the left turn lane so you don't get the backup. And then there is the potential to shift that roundabout further south. The reason we didn't do that originally is there's a wetland there. So we'd have to get through the wetland permitting and work through that.
Okay, there's no truth to the rumor that the Life Care Center, given the number of accidents, is not generating business.
No idea.
Okay. I have one question for Leah, and it's actually related to the only traffic light that the village owns, which is on Via Coconut and Coconut Road itself, where you turn into Lee Health, okay? I wondered, Leah, whether you'd actually found a fair number of accidents on that particular junction with the traffic light there. I've certainly seen quite a number. I didn't know how that had come up in your findings.
I would have to look back at what those numbers were, and we do have all those within the actual traffic study. The ones that we put up here were some of those, obviously they're higher frequency or higher volume intersections. Right. But I'd have to look back specifically to look, but we did put all those in there.
Right. It seems that what does seem to happen is that if you're going west down Coconut Road and you come to that light, you will see two left green arrows when there is when it's allowed to turn left down towards the Lee Health Center. Lee Health Center. However, what has happened is when I come up to it, I can understand why some problems occur, because it seems that there may be a slight misalignment of the lights. And so the two red lights that stop the two inner lanes from going forward, the outside lane have sometimes thought that that's a green for them, which I know seems silly, but they go through and then they hit the traffic that's turning coming east to go up via Coconut. My wonder is whether or not it would be a simple solution to actually make an arrow sign on the lights for the traffic that's actually going forward. Mm-hmm. There is only, of course, a round light there, but if there was a red-green arrow that was pointing forward, and of course it would turn to a green arrow because of the shape of the light, that could help to alleviate it. And since it's actually an Estero village light, it may well be a worthy thought. It's just something I wanted to mention. Yes, the lady there, go ahead.
You mentioned the eliminating the left-hand turns at Cascades and Leisure. Is there any, besides talking about it, is there any plan or any time frame?
Not currently. Not right now. That was just part of the study right now that we just got.
Mark.
I sit on the Citizen Advisory Council for the SDL. One of the things I've asked there is we would study on landscaping, this landscaping blocking the intersection.
Yes.
Real bad on Estero Park there.
There's definitely some places there, but I also have to wonder about the motorcycle accident in Mars. That place here at Willems Road is 41. It's a landscape.
Those lanes are offset. It's not the same situation as everywhere else. There's an offset there that the visibility is pretty good.
But we didn't look at that in the traffic study. It was landscape blocking, and that was not part of the study.
No, the landscaping was not.
Well, so generally, at all the roadways, the landscaping that's installed meets FDOT's criteria for visibility. So there's areas, if there's a specific intersection, we'll look to make sure it's getting cut as regularly as it needs to be. But there's certain types of plants and certain heights of plants that can be a certain distance from intersections, and that's what has been installed to comply with. Yeah, if there's specific areas, please let us know. You can call, you can do the website, or you can call, either one, let us know and we'll look at it. But generally they've been installed to meet state requirements.
All right, we'll take one more question and then go ahead.
If I could ask to follow up, pardon me, I don't want to carry this out too far, but David, in fairness, I'm curious. You said that B has control over traffic violations, but don't we have an inter-office, inter-governmental agreement with them that we could ask for stricter enforcement in the...
We do regularly, especially on specific roadways. For example, we'll get complaints that something's going on Three Oaks Parkway. And we'll call the sheriff's, the substation here, and ask that they look at it for whatever, these hours, and they do that from time to time.
Well, in all fairness, though, I recall after this dreadful intersection with, we saw all kinds of presidents a week after, for about a week. And then since then, we rarely see any police or any any form of regulating what's what. Even if a car was to the FCC, right?
We don't sit up.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let me just mention a couple of things. First of all, I know that there may be some other questions that you may have. We're always very, very pleased to take your messages, and I know that Steve here, the manager of the village, and David, who we see regularly, are very responsive to the issues that we put forward to them that come from you, and they're very happy to listen to those. I've got my cards up here, okay? So at the end, if any of you think of any other questions related to what we've been talking about, it's got my email address. Just drop me a quick note, and I'll put all of those questions together to David and to Leah and Steve, and obviously we'll then post those answers for you on our website. So, you know, anything that you do have, do please let me know, and we'll address them. But I do want to thank Leah very, very much. She is an amazing presenter, I think, don't you?
Thank you.
She is. I know how hard it is to present in company, and I think she did a marvelous job over such a complex set of projects. So congratulations to you. Thank you very much. So, okay, so we're just going to move on to the next section, which I think David is going to talk about. Obviously, this is an issue that's been ongoing for a little while, I think since about 2018, if I'm not mistaken. David will explain where we are with this project, some of the difficulties that have led to, you know, something of a fairly lengthy time for this. But at least we have some, hopefully, some end of the line in sight. David.
Good morning. So what I want to do is just provide a brief update of what's going on with the septic to sewer. By way of just quick background, there is a reason that we're doing all this. We've done some studies with FGCU and with the water quality monitoring that the state and the county have done, has indicated that the Estero River and Estero Bay are struggling from a water quality standpoint, both from a nutrient and bacteria. They have elevated levels of nutrients and bacteria. And one of the contributors to that is the septic tanks. The village of Estero has quite a few septic tanks, and a lot of those are on the Estero River, which is really the worst place that they could be located. Even if they're functioning properly, they're still releasing nutrients and bacteria to the environment. So these are the projects that we're currently working on and moving forward with construction. We have grant money for each of these. We really can't move forward without grant funding just because of the high cost of each of these projects. Two that are going on right now, they're actually under construction and moving forward, are Cypress Bend and Sunny Grove. Those are both packaged wastewater treatment plants. The other ones are designed, and we're working on the permits and working on the bids, but especially the Broadway, we're waiting on an additional grant funding that we might be able to get. CC Street and Broadway are the most recent ones we've gotten grant funding for, so we're working on bids for those. But just a little bit more detail on, let's go back. So Cypress Bend, the one on Estero Parkway, if you drive along Estero Parkway, you'll see a construction entrance that's finished. They're actually out there. They've actually put in the force main already and the water main. They're looking to finish those here in the next couple months. There is a little bit of a delay on that project because of power. We had to extend power to the lift station. So that's really going to be what decides when it gets finished. Sunny Grove, which is along US 41, part of that's been installed with the River Park. We actually installed some of the force main already. They're actually on site. They have the wet well in. So both of those are moving forward. Then there's a few projects that we've started on. We started the design, but they currently don't have any grant funding for. So these are not, construction is not imminent in these projects. But once these are finished, we'll basically have almost all of the septic tanks offline. The reason these are a little bit further out than the others is they're not expected to have the cost-benefit ratio that the other ones would. Some of the other ones are a little bit more densely populated, so the cost is a little bit lower per home, and the other ones are generally a little bit closer to the river than these are. So a little bit more detail about this projects. So that one, we're waiting on potential federal funding that would allow the grants to cover most of the cost for all of that development and allow the village to do Sherrill and Ludich Lane, which currently we don't have funding for. And that's what it's basically just water lines and sewer lines. It would be 2 lift stations, and we get all of those properties off of Septic. And then this is Sherrill and Ludich. This one's a little bit more complicated than the rest because if you go out there right now, there actually is no road. It's a dirt road that is washed out. What this would allow us to do is actually build a road with the utilities. So they would have swales, asphalt. Their roadway would look like all the other roadways within the village. It'd be a huge improvement to this area. But we really need the grant funding to do that. And this is why we already have $7.4 million. If we get the federal grant, it's another $16.5 million. So that's a huge amount of money to go toward that project. Sunny Grove, the one that's under construction along 41. This is relatively simple because they already have the gravity sewer in, so we just need a lift station and force main. But the complicating factor is the force main existing is all the way over at Corkscrew Road. So we actually had to directionally drill a force main under the river. That's already installed.
Excuse me, before we get too far in, can we go back to the Broadway West, the federal funding? So was that funding changed with the new administration?
We don't know that answer. Unfortunately, it's been delayed many, many, many times, and I think you've definitely hit on a fear, is that maybe that goes away. We don't know. We don't have the grant agreement yet. We've kind of made baby steps going forward. Just before the shutdown, we got notification that we needed to do a public notice and allow public comment on that potential grant. We finished that, I think, during the shutdown, and then we really haven't heard much since then. So if that does not come through, what'll happen is that Sherrill and Ludich will not move forward, and the assessments associated with the rest of it will be significantly higher than it would have been otherwise.
Any estimate as we stand today?
We don't. Those projects haven't gone out to bid until we get the grants and move forward, because that bid's only going to be ready, valid for a month or two.
So if we don't have any bids, and there's really no timeline for the project to move forward?
Well, it's not the bids that is holding it up, it's the grant. So we're working with a construction manager to try to get it expedited. But until that grant is secured, there's not really a reason to do the next step.
So let me just add, this is one of the problems that really perplexes us. If we're relatively far along in the design and the permitting, we could easily trigger that project immediately and begin construction very soon. But that means that we would not get that $16.5 million grant. Once you start, you can't get the federal grant.
But at what point are we going to start it with or without the grant?
That's the $64,000 question.
Yeah.
That's exactly the question that we have. Now, if we start that and proceed with the higher assessments then on each individual homeowner, and then the grant comes along, you're going to be very, very upset because you'll be paying $40,000 or $50,000 instead of, say, $5,000. And that's the problem that we have, and why it's being held up, I don't know. We have checked throughout the entire county. These are called the FEMA Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, HMGP. There are only 5 small programs like that that have been approved within all of Lee County, and about 18 that are priority 1, like ours, but that have not been approved. And that's the question that we have. And I would love nothing better. I go into the office and I'm screaming at people every week what's happened, and we just don't know. I'd love nothing better you'll hear me yell, saying hurrah if we get the grant. But if we don't, when do we pull the trigger and just go? When we pull the trigger now without the grant, the maximum that the village would kick in is probably 25%, leaving, the lion's share to the residents.
The current grant that we have, is there a time limit on that grant that has to be used?
Yes, 2029. And that's what we're bumping up against. Yes. So the other dilemma, just so you understand our pain, is that on that state grant for 7.5 million and the 2029 timeline, it's anyone's guess as to what the state's going to do when they have their budget troubles. So right now, the state is in a surplus situation of $1.2 billion to the positive. Next year, they go red, and with a shortfall of 1.6 million, and 2 years out, 2028, there's a $6.4 billion shortfall. So the question we have is, is the state going to sweep up all the unused grant money, leaving us nothing? So the ideal for us has always been to get both of those grants, and we're able to go in there and do the best possible job with relatively low cost to the residents.
The 2029 deadline, is that a start date or a finish date?
Finish.
Finish date. Wow. And from previous meetings, if I remember correctly, the construction time period is anywhere from 12 to 18 months. I think it's closer to 2 years.
Probably 2 years.
Yeah.
So we're up against that timeline right now, potentially losing the state grant.
I wouldn't say we're up against the deadline, but we're getting close. And to make matters worse or better, we have the other grant on, state grant on Broadway to upgrade Broadway from US 41 to about Charing Cross. And that's 7.5, what is that one?
No, that's
16 million on that one. So the problem with that whole neighborhood in West Broadway, there's only one way in and one way out. And doing construction on your residential streets while we're also doing construction on the feeder street, West Broadway, is going to make it miserable.
Pretty bad too. The road
Yep.
is,
Oh, it's terrible.
I live at my house is the very last house in Broadway in Armada, so, yeah.
But it will transform the entire area. I mean, the roadways will be more like everywhere else in the village. The narrow streets with
But I
the,
heard you guys weren't gonna do anything to widen Broadway.
well, but the swales that are almost vertical will all go away.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's the whole reason we're doing it. Yeah, you might get a foot shoulder or something like that. I mean, it's not going to be able to be a 12, and we would want it to be a 12-foot wide road. Yes, yeah.
So this is really a painful discussion for us because, there's a huge opportunity and a positive effect and then there's, we lose everything kind of. And the question is, when do you pull the trigger? And if the folks in those neighborhoods have a suggestion, bring it on, because you're the ones that are going to have to be paying the piper on this one.
Even if you do from 40 on Broadway, 41 down to Charing Cross, and you finish that project, does that go live and in use at that time before you do the balance of West Broadway?
It could. But, well, we're not ready for that yet, though.
No, that's not going to start construction for 2 years. Yeah.
So we've got to still do the design for that portion closest to 41, the $16 million piece, and go through the permitting. And the design is going to be complicated because we don't have the right of way. So, okay, I've been talking. What do you guys want to do?
Well, it's frustrating. I'm sure that everybody here in the room has got the same frustration and concerns, and it's all over money and it's over the government. So, as we well know, the government's got us right where they want us.
It is very frustrating right now. And believe me, we've done everything we can. If you want to call up the senator's office,
How does the potential of losing property tax revenue come into play? Does that even?
No, not an issue. So we fought very hard for these grants. And we're right on the cusp. You know, it would be a huge win for that whole neighborhood to get everything and get it all done.
Is there a historical with other communities in the state that how long these grants take to get approved? We've had some unique situations in our lifespan here, but you know, is it a 2-year, 5-year, 10-year?
We were very fortunate. We were very aggressive and then very fortunate to get the HMGP grants as a result of Hurricane Ian. We were at the front of the line by design. And, you know, there are septic systems all up and down the coast. So, I mean, there are millions of them. And to get this kind of favorable treatment for our situation is pretty exceptional. It's just a question of when are they going to follow through. We've followed all the guidelines. We've got a good cost-benefit ratio on all the projects. It's a mitigation program, meaning that in the future, those neighborhoods are going to flood. Your water systems and sewer systems are going to flood again, and that's going to impact the river. So
And there's no financial mechanism to go ahead and start the project, do it?
no.
And if we get the grant, we reimburse homeowners or put it all on taxes?
So the way the grant is written, if you, anything that's expended already is not grant eligible. So maybe framing this a little, I'd like to kind of finish this first, but just to frame it a little bit differently, just keep in mind this HMGP is a unique situation. Normally, if we did not have the HMGP, we would be trying to compete with money with every other community that's trying to do the septic to sewer. And we did that previously, and because of where we're located and the potential impact and that we're not a disadvantaged community, meaning that, you know, it's fairly affluent, we don't compete well for the money in those situations. So this is a unique place that we're able to get potentially a lot of money that is going to significantly reduce the cost of the residents. The only reason we're waiting. If we didn't have that unique opportunity, we would probably be moving forward and the residents would be paying a lot of money for this. So that's why we're waiting, is because it's such a large dollar amount.
Is there a possibility that they come back and only give half, a quarter, a third?
On the HMGP, I believe we're past that point. It would probably be, they could do whatever they want, but it would probably be they wouldn't give it to us or we get that number. Likely. So here's Sunny Grove. We talked about that a little bit. So there is a state grant there that we already have, but it's shared between Sunny Grove and Cypress Bend. We've asked for another grant this year. I'm not sure that's likely going to happen to try to offset those costs. Cypress Bend, that one's in a little bit better situation because it's so close to the existing force main that their cost is lower, total cost, and then they have a lot more residents to split it. So their cost per resident is a lot lower. That's their whole connection. So it's a lot simpler than what Sunny Grove is. And completion in July. So that's everything completed. That means that the connections are made and the treatment plant is offline. And then this is one that we're working on right now. We got a grant last year, and this is the first phase of Broadway Avenue East. This is just the lift station, the improvements along Sandy Lane and Broadway. It does not include any of the other side streets. Those would have to happen later. And that just shows that it's just on Sandy Lane and Broadway. $800,000 grant. We're moving forward with construction on this. And then CC Street, similar to Broadway, we got an $800,000 grant for that. Moving forward, we have the design finished. We are revising it just a little bit to try to bring down the cost some. The contractor reviewed the plans and came up with some ideas that we might be able to make it a little bit cheaper. So the engineer's working on that, and then they're going to give us the cost again, and then we'll get back with the residents to tell them what that cost is. The cost was, I think, 50% higher than what we thought it should be, so we think we'll be able to get that down and make it a little bit more reasonable for the village and the residents. And then, I mean, we went through a lot of questions, but are there any more real quickly?
No, I was going to say that.
I have 2 questions, if I may.
There will be no utility work on Cheryl and Ludich. Yes, generally. That's another reason we want to wait for that grant, because that, I mean, it's transformational for that area. Yep. Yep.
My other question was, I thought I heard you said that the construction design has not been done for Broadway West up to,
So,
Cross?
so the utility design is done, but there's actually two projects. One is the utility design, which was kind of what we're talking about here, but we actually got a grant, a different federal grant, that is to redesign the actual roadway, the Broadway roadway, which will, get rid of some of the deep swales and things like that, make it a safer road.
Okay, but you're not widening. We're from Riverwoods, and we had given the easement to put the lift station on our property. And with the construction of the road, will that impact our entrance property or any of?
So with Riverwoods, I think the only thing that it might impact is fixing your turn lane, because your turn lane is not a standard turn lane. It's like half the size that it should be, and so it would be those type of things to improve the safety.
But we won't lose.
No. There's no, because of the schedule for that project, it's going to be very difficult for the village to take land or to expand outside the right of way.
Thank you.
Yep, take one question.
Me or?
No, down to the box, sorry. Yeah.
What was the cost for CC Street that was planned to get, and what is the?
We'll get with you when we get the new costs. I don't remember off the top of my head anyways, but.
Are you guys planning to get more funding for it?
I don't think we'll be able to. Yeah, we're not going to be able to get more funding for that. It's like the village manager said, the state budgets are starting to get constrained this year and next year, so the availability of that dollar. That was one of the projects we submitted on the water quality grant, and because of our location and the density of septic tanks, we did not compete favorably to some of the other areas.
So the 800,000 still expires in 2028?
Yeah. But that's a short street. It's not going to take us 2 years to finish that one.
Well, look, I know everybody's extremely engaged with this, given the conversations that there have been about it. And I, again, thank you for coming to ask these questions. But I equally want to thank Steve and David. They're very, very busy people, and it's very kind of them to come and share with you the answers to these issues, which I know are very, very important. So please give them a round of applause. We just have one other issue, which I know David wants to cover fairly quickly before I wrap up then with the morning session. So, David, over to you. We'll just put these down.
So just a quick update, the River Park, the land on Corkscrew Road and US 41, that is moving forward. The contractor's a little bit behind schedule. It was supposed to be finished in November. Now it looks like it'll be more January is when it'll be finished. But they have made some progress. It was exciting. Yes, on Tuesday, I was out on site most of the day because they actually installed the bridge over the river. So if you paddle the river any today or whenever, you'll actually see a pedestrian bridge over it. It looks really good. It's it's decorative. It's like 12 or 13 feet wide, so it's going to be nice going back and forth across the river. Just to kind of go through what the park is, that this is the kind of the master plan of what we're doing in the first two phases. We'll have a restroom and parking on the north side, the bridge across the river, and then there'll be trails on the south side. There is an eagle's nest there. The eagles are back this year. I haven't personally seen them, but we have an ecologist that kind of monitors, and she sent us a picture of them about 2 weeks ago. So they are back. They've been there for at least 3 years. They have had offspring that have fledged, so it has been successful. But what that means is there's certain areas of the site that we're not able to use while they're nesting. So what you see here with the two green circles is that inner circle is 330 feet from the nest. Generally during nesting season, which is October to June, you can't be in that area. Nobody can be in that area. Those trails will be closed during that period. But the rest of the trails are available. We just have to stay out of that area. This is the site plan. Originally, we had a path that was going to go to the Estero River Outfitters. The Outfitters was not comfortable with that path, so we went ahead and deleted it. The only reason it was there to benefit them, and if they didn't want it, then for the short term, we got rid of that. And then this is really what's going to be opening in January. This is the phase 1 area. So there'll be an entrance off of County Road, parking, restroom facility, the bridge, and then paths. The path that's over by the Eagle's Nest will have a gate across it when people can't go there, and warn people to stay out of that area. But the rest of the paths are going to be open. We're working on the design for phase 2, which will almost double the amount of trails. That'll go all the way over to the railroad. If the BERT ever happens, the BERT would be able to connect into these trails at some point in the future if that were to happen. And then with that, that's any questions?
Where's the entrance to that park?
It's on County and Highlands, kind of where they intersect over by the fire station, behind the fire station on 41.
Is there a gopher tortoise habitat on the property?
So are you asking if there's gopher tortoises on the property? Yes. And generally they're on the north side. There are not, I don't even know if there are any on the south side. I mean, if you mean habitat in that there's a preserve, no. Is there gopher tortoises there because they like that area? Yes.
Okay. Well, again, David, thank you so much. I appreciate all you've done today, and it's certainly been very enlightening on those 2 projects. So I appreciate it very much. Oh, did you walk over? Oh, no, it's here. Well, I don't have a great deal more to cover for you, but there is actually something which maybe Steve and even David here may not have come across, and that is just yesterday I received an update because I've been trying to get exactly what's going on and what the timeline is on the I-75 expansion. I know many people here in Estero are obviously very concerned and somewhat unhappy if they live close to I-75 about potential road noise. And you probably know that Engage Estero has been very engaged in that particular issue, and we've certainly been providing a lot of information to the Florida Department of Transport from our perspective, helping the Brooks communities and others who've been very concerned. But the information that I had yesterday is as follows, and it was from Don Scott, who's the head of the Lee County Metropolitan Planning Organization, and he had received, which I don't think very many other people had received, a notification from FDOT, which was as follows, and I read it out. At this time, there is no confirmed date for the rescheduled public hearing of the postponed meeting that was to have been held in Naples on August the 14th. You all know about that, I'm sure, because we announced that as well as they did. Following the hearing from the new public meeting to be determined, additional outreach and coordination will occur before any community voting on noise barriers takes place. This will potentially extend a year or more beyond that milestone. So even though we don't have that meeting yet, then of course they're saying that to take in all of the comments, it's going to be a year after that. So clearly there is some delay here. And it just goes on to say, we will keep you and other stakeholders informed as new information becomes available. Please don't hesitate to reach out with any additional questions in the meantime. So there you have it. And that was hot off the press yesterday. All I would follow up by saying is that, of course, we did at Engage Estero a fair bit of research on this, and some of you will know, certainly those of you in the Brooks will know, that we said that given the evidence that has determined the particular benefits of noise abatement walls, the research conducted by the Federal Highway Administration point to two recommendations for such walls, namely the Valmont Sound Wall, which is North American, and the Durasol precast noise barriers, which is also North American and Canadian. Also, given the benefit of the noise-deadening asphalt that has been already used and tried on a stretch of I-75 in the Estero area. I don't know if some of you have been on I-75 and moved to one of the lanes where they've laid down this new asphalt. If you do, you will find that you can hear your radio, if you have one on, far more clearly than you could before. So it does work. And so we recommended that certainly that should be used as an additional means to safeguard the noise that comes from it. And of course, we've also suggested, in accordance with the wishes of the Brooks, that there would be a 22-foot high wall of that make, extending without breaks down the length of the area that certainly covers the Brooks communities as well. So anyway, that's an update on that. Just two other quick points. The upcoming meetings that we have are as follows. The community and member meeting to be held here on January the 29th at 10 o'clock, our usual time, will feature the FGCU's entrepreneurial school on why it's important to not only FGCU, but what's the mutual benefit of that school and what the students do for us in Greater Estero. It's a very interesting school and some very interesting students who are working there. And also, something that's rather dear to my heart, and I think also to the villagers as well, who are obviously looking at ways and means of expanding the benefits of music and how it's transmitted in a community theatre and things of that nature as we go forward. I wanted people to understand already what's going on here. The Bauer School of Music, FGCU's Bauer School, does a wonderful job in providing both the students with, of course, very, very high-class teaching, and some of those students that I hear very often are really just so amazing. I mean, some of the pianists are really almost world-class pianists and win competitions all over the world. So we'll be hearing a little bit from them, and also Gulf Shore Opera. I don't know if any of you went down to Naples recently or saw the wonderful opera that they put on, which was Carmen, but quite honestly, that would have graced any of the world's major opera houses. I mean, it was just outstanding. So you'll be hearing about that in January. And then on March the 17th, we have a public forum, which is going to be at FGCU on the 17th of March, and that's going to be looking at the future of our community. In other words, what can we expect, not only tomorrow, but many years down the line, and Steve is going to be one of the panel members of that, together with Dr. Timmer from FGCU's university. Also Chris Semino from Lee Health will be talking about their plans for the future, which of course stretches out quite a way. But we also are pleased to say that we have one of the major investors, as was in Naples, who is now very focused on helping Estero with a number of developments, and that is the Hoffman Group. And we will have one of the senior directors of the Hoffman Group on the panel talking about what the plans are and what the future holds for us here. So that's very exciting. And last and not by no means least, I don't know if any of you had come across just yet, we will be, of course, promoting this particular annual event, which is very important, not only to engage Estero, but I think certainly to the village. I know that both the former mayor, John McLean, and our current mayor, Joanne Ribble, are very, very keen to be involved and to know what, you know, the format of this particular event is. It certainly helps us to identify all that's going on, all that's good that's going on in our area, and all of the volunteers, there are many of them, all unsung heroes who helped keep our area so very, very nice. So the award this year, which is going to be given on February the 26th, is to Dr. Larry Antonucci. We feel that that award is extremely well intended. Of course, Dr. Antonucci is the President and Chief Operating Officer of Lee Health, and it's really in honor of his community leadership and significant commitment to enhancing the medical services available in Greater Estero. And I think any of you who do take, have involvement with the Lee Health facilities here cannot be failed to be impressed. And of course, there are going to be further expansions of that too. So that's going to be, an important development here for us. One last quick comment. And that is, we're very, very pleased to see from those of you who have signed in today that you're actually from a number of communities, HOAs and gated communities, many of them here, of course, in Estero. It's interesting that while we do have support from many of the gated communities here, around 50% of you are actually from gated communities that don't actually have those communities support us. And that's kind of a little sad and a little disappointing in many ways. And so if you would like, why don't you speak to your own boards and ask them, do you support Engage Estero? The cost of doing that is actually very little, less than $1 per resident per year, which is not much, but it does matter to us quite seriously. We have of course, all of us are volunteers. There are about 26 senior executives working at Engage Estero. I just happen to be in charge at the moment, but I wouldn't be here without the support of all of those people. Only one person actually gets paid, and that's our webmaster and coordinator for our communications, which is Kim Daly, and she runs a business. And she's been doing this for ECCL formerly and now Engage Estero for many, many years. So, we don't take any money for what we do. And many of us actually work, 25, 30 hours a week because we like to do what we do. We enjoy doing this, bringing you information, keeping you informed, and certainly with the thanks to, obviously, Steve today and David and Leah, who did a magnificent job. It gives you all the information, I think, up to date that you need. So do have a word with them, see if they support us, and maybe perhaps next year they will. So on that note, I'd like to call the meeting to a close and thank you all extremely much and wish you all a very happy Christmas and happy holiday.